Okay, this looks like somebody that might disagree. Yellow.
Hey, what's up, man?
Nothing much. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm good. I guess I can. I'm 38 years old. I'm a single father. Been raising my son on my own for almost 9 years now. I live out in the country. I have ideas that aren't exactly the same as yours, so I would love to just have a conversation. I don't want to get ganged up on. I don't want my followers to be pissed off at you, and I don't want your followers to attack me just because we have different ideals. I think finding common ground and a way through life, we aren't always at each other's throats, would be beneficial. So bridge a gap is what I'm trying to say here. So let's start with the number one, the pro-choice, with no restrictions.
Okay.
I am all for um, women having abortions when it's not being used as a form of birth control. I don't believe that anybody has the right to just kill a living being just because they don't feel like taking the responsibility for that being. Um,
So, can I ask you what specifically is wrong with using abortion as birth control?
well, I think that there are enough prophylactics to kind of stay away from having to end a life, end a developing life. If that's not what you want, and going into the act of sex that you do not want a child, you have other options other than stopping a pregnancy when you know full well that the result of sex is getting pregnant. So
And
I think
you
just
do recognize that 51% of all abortions happen because of failed contraception, correct?
sure, I would have to look that up, but I'm not saying it's not true. And I know that, it's very slim. It's a very small percentage of women that are going out and getting pregnant, 15 times a year and using it as abortion. But I think at some point, if that becomes the case, people would have to go, hey, maybe you should start thinking about trying something else. That's how I feel. My mom, my stepmom had to have an abortion because she was on a medication. Her blood doesn't clot, so she had to take Coumadin, and they found out that my brother or sister was 100% going to have deformities, life-altering deformities. So her and my father decided that it would probably be best to terminate the pregnancy. So I've experienced that firsthand, and I think it would be beneficial, not only for the woman's mental health, and I don't what I can't understand, what I can't wrap my mind around is how someone can be okay with, you know, just I just abortion overall. It's a tough decision, so maybe I'm getting off the point here.
Yeah, I mean, I can give
Um,
you my reasonings why I'm okay with abortion, like overall, just in general, especially like the concept of abortion. Why I'm
yeah,
completely okay with
yeah.
it.
Let me hear why it would be.
So it's a two pronged reason. The first is I don't believe any human being on this planet should be forced to give their resources, specifically their bodily resources, to another human being. So like sheer bodily autonomy in that sense. You should never have to, right? It should always be consensual. The second reason is because I don't believe that a fetus is a person. I don't believe it can even be considered a person until up to 24 weeks. So anything that happens to it before that doesn't really matter to me. I think it would be illogical of me to emotionally care about something that's not a person yet. When it becomes a person, then we can talk about like what we should and shouldn't do. But prior to when it's a person, I have no sympathy or emotions or feelings towards it whatsoever. My feelings
Okay,
lie
so
with the pregnant person. That's who they lie with. The person who actually exists.
right. I can kind of understand that, but if it Okay, if it's taking resources away and it was actually harming or hurting the person it was taking it away from, then I could understand that logic or that reasoning. But being a developing fetus, I don't think the woman is at any risk of, starving, or there are medical reasons why, some women have to have the abortion because the baby is actually harming the woman. But
So
the resource thing, I
one thing to
don't, the
keep in
bodily
mind,
autonomy.
all pregnancy is pain. There's no pregnancies
Yeah,
that you go through that you are not harmed in some way, shape, or form, whether it be emotionally, physically, whatever you want to say. So there's not a single pregnancy that doesn't result in that. The other thing I would say is
right.
you don't need to be actively harming someone to be considered violating that person's rights. So, for example, if somebody steals like a bicycle off of my property and it's like my bicycle, they're not hurting me. Like I'm not physically in any pain, but they did violate my rights.
Yeah. Why? Okay, and I've heard a lot of women say, why don't men just get, their nuts clipped so they can't, have or make babies with women, or why wouldn't a woman get their tubes tied, if they don't want to have the babies, if they're getting pregnant and they don't, they just want to have an abortion. Why don't we do the things that we know can stop the pregnancy from happening in the first place? Why does it have to always come down to the abortion part of it?
So I think a lot of people who react with you should get vasectomies, right? They're reacting in an extreme to combat a extreme. I do believe mandatory vasectomies would be harmful and like against what I mostly stand for, which is bodily autonomy. But if
Yeah.
your view is like I want to do everything I can not to let abortions happen, it would be a a logical conclusion to come to go, well, I'm going to get a vasectomy so I can't get somebody pregnant and there is no risk of that abortion happening. I think there are plenty of people who take all the necessary steps not to get pregnant and they still get pregnant. And I don't want those people to ever be forced to have to sustain that pregnancy if it is not consensual.
Okay. And are you for the long-term third trimester type of abortions? Do you draw a line to where, after 20 weeks, 25 weeks, you probably shouldn't, because it's actually, you can look in the woman's stomach and it's actually a baby inside there.
So I am not for any governmental restrictions on abortion. I do not think the government should be putting their hands into people's medical decisions. Now, when it comes to third trimester abortions, they don't actually really exist. Late term abortions are 100% all medical. They only happen for medical reasons, even prior to Roe v. Wade being overturned. And then when you have countries where there are no restrictions on abortion, like Canada, you also have zero late term abortions. Like they just, no abortions happen in the third trimester unless they're for medical reasons. Now, we do have to recognize that abortion doesn't just mean like the killing of the fetus. Abortions are any medical intervention that causes the evacuation of the contents of the uterus. So cesarean sections in some states are considered abortions. Inductions of labor are abortions. All of these things are abortions, and all of these things are good and completely fine and do not result in the death of the fetus. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
up until that fetus is out, I make no decisions on its life. The only person that can make that decision is the person who's pregnant and their doctor. They are the only people that I think can make a decision based on for abortion or not.
Okay. I'm getting a lot of echo right now. I'm gonna hop out and then come back in.
No problem.
I don't know why it just started. It did it right in the middle of what you were saying for some reason.
If you got a phone call or it like did anything, then that would make sense. But you can okay, you can come back. Let's come back. But yeah, guys, I'm for no governmental restrictions on abortions. There should not be. Zero, zip, nada, not a single one. Welcome back.
Okay. Thanks. So, okay. Yeah, so I'm not totally against abortions. So that's kind of a topic that I am malleable on. I can go either way, but hearing your point of view, I do understand where you are coming from. Number two, body count doesn't determine value. And that's one to where if you're promiscuous enough that you're going out and having sex with, people that are not responsible with their sexual health, their personal hygiene, and it does kind of damage the value of the person. I would think, you're not.
So I don't believe that who a person has slept with determines anything even remotely close to their value. And I definitely don't believe that who, like, if somebody receives an STI or anything like that, that affects it, right? I think that a lot of people believe that it does, that like who you sleep with and if you sleep with people reflects on you as a person. But I think those people are boiling down a person to just their sexual experiences or their past.
Yeah.
And I just think that's wrong.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how I want to word this, because I've only been with 7 people. I'm 38. I've been with 7 people. All of my relationships lasted between 2.5 to 7 years. So when I actually look for a partner, I'm not trying to find somebody who has been really sexually active, just for the simple fact that I think it would be damaging to our relationship, because at some point they're going to get bored with me and they're going to try to find what they are craving from somebody else. So
Well,
maybe it's
that's
not
where I
about
think.
value. Maybe it's about the sex drive.
Well, I think you're
That
projecting, right? That's textbook projection, right? Your insecurities are coming out, and you're going, "Well, I don't think I would be enough to satiate this person, so I would be worried about getting in a relationship with them." Even though that's not what they've said, that's not what's in their heart. That's what you are afraid of.
Yeah.
And I think that's what almost everybody I've talked to, that's what body count comes down to. I think the only time you can think about body count in a way that it matters and where you would want to stay away from somebody with a high one is if you live in a country where there's not comprehensive STI testing and where like your healthcare is incredibly like STI testing or STI care is more expensive than it is here. If that's like the case, then I understand being wary of people that have been with a lot of people because you don't have the ability to be tested like you do here. But in America, where like every Planned Parenthood will do like an STI panel for you and it does not cost that much money, I think as long as someone is being safe and consensual, then their past doesn't matter. And what's in their heart is not about what they've done and who they've been with. It's about how they feel and interact with you as a person. So I just think a lot of
I
people
agree. Totally agree with that.
yeah, I think a lot of people get very insecure and very worried that they're not enough to satiate somebody. But like I think they get that from TV mostly. And like in the real world, it's just about whether somebody has a connection with you or not.
Yeah, I do agree with that. So body count doesn't determine value. And yeah, I mean, you're right, because there are a lot of people that you would never know. They may have 40 or 50 people that they've had sexual relationships with, and they're just as upstanding as, the woman that goes to church every Sunday who has been celibate. And, yeah, you're totally right on that, I guess.
Yeah, and I'd actually be more worried. Just to throw this out there, I'd be more worried about somebody cheating on me if they've never been with somebody else. Hey, thank you for the person who just subscribed on TikTok. Mainly because they've not experienced life, so I would be more worried that they would feel like they were missing out, which does happen a lot. But yeah, did you want to keep going down the list?
Yeah, number 3, trans men, women are men, women.
Mm-hmm.
So if that was the case, I think they would just be called men or women. I don't have an issue with the trans community, but we can't make something that it isn't.
So the pushback I would give on this is that we recognize that intersectionality is a thing and your identity falls into a multitude of factors. So for example, I would not say that black women and white women are the same. They experience womanhood differently. They are both women, but they have different experiences in their womanhood. Just like I would say trans women and cis women are both women, but they experience their womanhood very differently. I think it's dangerous to not recognize that everything has multiple categories. And so being a man or being a woman also has multiple categories. And there's just multiple ways that we can view it. So I don't think it's bad to recognize intersectionality.
So we have to recognize the biology of it, the psychology of it, and the reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that your gender, right, and your gender identity is very much a self-reflective thing. Your gender identity does not matter what the biology is, but some people's gender identity matches with their biology, and to them, their biology is important. So, like, that's why we have multiple terms. So, like, saying that somebody is a cisgender woman, it is a equal that cisgender part is equally as important to their identity as saying to a transgender person that they are transgender, because them being transgender is equally as important to their identity. At least, from what I've viewed. I'm not transgender, so I don't want to speak for them, but I have multiple
Right.
friends who are, and they've told me a lot about their experiences and like what they go through. So I think it's just recognizing intersectionality, and the people who deny it and go, well, they're not women or they're not men, they're they're actively wrong, because gender identity is what decides that. And B, I think it's harmful, and it's saying to these people, you will never fit into this category that was completely made up in the first place. And we have all the flexibility in the world to open it up. So I think it's just respect thing and just recognizing intersectionality. So yeah.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I had a lot of cousins and I had a lot of girl cousins. And I did like playing dress up. I would put on dresses. I would let them paint my face and do all my makeup, and we would just have fun and play around. It felt good to pretend I was a girl. I liked being pretty. I actually was an attractive woman when I had my makeup done up. But it was a phase for me. It was something I was experimenting with, I guess. And after I got away from my cousins and kind of grew up on other things, dirt bikes and four wheelers, and I didn't have the desire to want to pretend to be, a girl anymore. So I think if I would have been around somebody that was more into the mind frame of a transgendered person now, they may have pushed me a little farther or made me feel more comfortable in saying, okay, well, maybe I am having these feelings for a reason, and maybe
So
maybe
so
I am a female inside.
so
But
I want you to think about this really quickly. So like, you enjoyed dressing up, you enjoyed being, in your words, pretty, you enjoyed all of that. Nothing wrong with that. Personally, I would say look into that more if that was something you enjoyed as a child. But the one thing that you never felt, based on what you've told me, is you never felt like you weren't a boy, right? Now, boys can dress up. We can dress up. We can wear dresses. We could wear makeup if we want. We could do the whole nine yards. It doesn't make us any less of a boy. And almost every transgender person I've ever met will tell you that it's not about pushing kids to be one thing or not. It's about allowing them the self-expression and the safety to express themselves in whatever way they feel comfortable. And if through that expression they come to a realization, that's great. But you had that expression and didn't one time go, oh, well, I'm a girl, or no, you're a boy. That's how you felt inside. You're just a boy that liked to dress up, which is nothing wrong about. I've never met a single person that tries to push any type of sexuality, gender, or anything like that on children, except for, I'm going to be very blatant, people on the right. That's the only time I have ever seen a push. Other than that, people on the left, people who do recognize this, we want people to just be free to express themselves and allow their identities to come out as they do, and like eventually find that stuff. So yeah.
okay. And with the transgender community, my mom was a lesbian, so I grew up around lesbian females who like to dress up like men. I was around a lot of gay men, and this was between the ages of 4 and 11. And never once did I have anybody try to force me or made me feel uncomfortable. It was always just about love and expressing who you are. So I completely get that part of it. What I'm having a hard time grasping is how when a male transitions into a female, I can't understand how the there isn't an asterisk by this was because it can't ever be you were biologically born a male and now you are biologically a female. It's just there's it's not 100% real. There are factors beyond just your mind telling you that you are this that
So
go into play.
so let me see if I can help you with that a little bit, right? So,
Yeah,
I have never met a transgender woman who has claimed that she's biologically female, right? Because we recognize that sex and gender are vastly different things. Now, um,
that's what I'm having a hard time grasping is the gender and the sex.
so sex
The
has three categories, right? One of those categories is gender, and your gender is wholly about your gender identity. So it's the way that you express yourself. It's the way that you, how do I want to word this? Let me pull up the actual wording because I don't want to say it incorrectly. So this is what I like. It's an individual subjective perception of their sex and their sexual orientation. So that's what gender is, right? It's your subjective individual interpretation. Now, one
okay,
thing that I really want you to understand is like when I say that like transgender women are women, there is the topmost section of the pyramid that is women. And then that pyramid breaks down. So it breaks down into old women and young women. Then it breaks down in the category of old women. Then you have black women, white women, Asian women, Hispanic women. Then you go even further down. You have trans women. You have cisgender women. Then you go down even further, and you have like women who like disabled women, and you have like it's just vast. It's vast. But all of these people who have multiple different aspects of them, right? There are women who don't have the same gametes in the same sexual reproductive organs, right? There's secondary sex characteristics. Their female organs did not form, right? Because of the way they were
right.
born and whatever. But they are still women, right? So I just want to be careful with this need that women have to all fit in the same category because we already don't make them. We just recognize that women is an all-encompassing word. And that's it.
Yeah,
It's
and a lot of these people in your comments don't understand that I'm not trying to be an asshole. I would like to understand it. And it's not the fact that just get over it and respect it. I want to have the full understanding of everything. If my brain isn't grasping it, it's just like when the male wants to be the female because their body doesn't understand why they're a male when their brain is telling them that they're a female. So I want to know and I want to learn and I want to be able to engage with other people who have the same issues like me so I can help them further understand. So maybe we can make a breakthrough here and we can actually make progress into having the society as a whole being more accepted than what it is instead of just stigmatized by people who don't want to understand. I want to make that breakthrough and I want to have the ability to conversate with people who are 100% just bigots and rude and they could care less. I want to have that bridge.
Yeah, I would just say ignore the comments. I think me and you we're having a very good conversation. So like we can just keep on keeping on.
Yeah,
Because I think you are understanding and you are very open to changing your mind and your beliefs.
I always do.
So
And see,
yeah.
that's I save more lives than I harm. Me and my son, we are 100% for the earth. We're positive. We don't go out and treat people like garbage. We treat everybody with respect. I'm not mean to transgender people. I just in my own mind and I want to be more educated on the entire community, I should say, because like I said, I grew up in a lesbian household, so I do have love is love. I was taught that from the very beginning. I've got 40 acres of land out here with horses and goats, and I'm an earth person, so I'm not trying to be offensive or anything to anybody. So I do, and I agree with number four. The misandry hurts feelings. Misogyny does kill. Um, Violence is violence. So um, there are men that are going to be the powerhouse, want to go to the gym, and women should be in the kitchen type guys, and I don't agree with that at all. I've always been helpful around the house. I've never made any of my partners do anything that they weren't comfortable doing. I'm not going to say I was at work all day, so you have to clean the house and you have to take care of the kid. It's always been more than 50-50. It's been 100%, 100%. We're both putting our all in, so that's one that I do agree with.
Yeah, for sure. Did you
Number
have any?
five.
Okay, we can
Yeah.
no problem.
Yep. Number five, sex health ed, K through 12. Um, I wouldn't say sex ed for, I would say K through 4. I would say um, we should talk about the gender type things. Let's leave the sexual intercourse type stuff out unless the child is questioning that, and I think that may be an issue for parents and teachers to come together on and kind of speak about. Um, I don't think it should be in a curriculum guided by the state. I think that's something that needs to be left up to the child's own cycle of development, because some kids start wondering about things earlier. And I know from my experience, I was molested by a next door neighbor. So I was more sexual than what most kids were at my age. And there was a reason why, and that was the reason. So I think if we have kids that are bringing up, sex and these other things, I think we need to look around their environment to see if there's something that has pushed them in this direction. I think having their innocence and kind of letting them have their own discovery is very important, very key to a healthy sexual development, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so what I would say to that, thank you for sharing your experiences, and very sorry that happened to you. But what I would say is when we're talking about comprehensive sexual health education, specifically K through 12, what we have to recognize is that everything would be age appropriate. So when we're looking at children between the ages of kindergarten and third grade, the things we want to instill upon them that we want them to learn by the time they hit fourth grade is like the proper names for their anatomies, the beginning understandings of consent. I'm very much want children to recognize that they don't even have to let their parents hug them if they don't want to hug, and that will start to instill these ideas of consent into their brains. We want to teach them specifically hygiene. I think is very important at that age, and we also want
Yeah,
to
I
teach
can
them
agree with
about
that.
family and social circles, like the beginning stages. We wouldn't get super into gender past like what it is as a kind of broad concept. Same with sexuality. Like the most we would do is Jimmy has two dads because his two dads love each other. That's their beginning introduction to sexuality, right? It doesn't have to be more than that.
Right.
And obviously, if they have more questions, we'll answer those questions, and it would be taught by like teachers and social workers together to like do these lessons. But I think it's very important for their safety because we have found that children who know the names of their proper body parts and don't call it like a hoo hoo or a ding dong or whatever you want to say, those
Right.
children who know their proper anatomy are less likely to be targets of child SA. They're less likely to be pregnant as teenagers. They're less likely to have multiple sexual partners when they have comprehensive sexual education, right? All of these things they're most likely to do, and they're able to more accurately describe and explain when they are victims of SA. So I think as long as like teaching them this early is incredibly important. And I don't think we should allow parents the ability to opt out of it because unfortunately what we see is the bulk percentage of SA for children happens in the home, either by family or close family friends. So it's either in the home
Yep.
or close to the home. And children need another form of advocates not just their parents, because if their parents happen to be abusive or their parents happen to be just a little bit neglectful, the child suffers. Whereas if we give them
Yes.
that support system at school, and they know they have support at school and they know they have people that they can go to, they are going to thrive and they're going to be able to more better keep themselves safe, from both the parents and the child level. So I just think it's very important that they start learning this, and a lot of states do teach it, but it needs to be standardized federally and across the board, just because children need to be kept safe.
I can agree.
Yeah, so I
Abolish
would say
police and
it's
prisons.
just real quick. I would say it's definitely seeming like you agree with a lot more than you disagree with on the list.
Yeah, I think because I have an open mind and I have an open heart, so I try to put myself in other people's shoes a lot of the times and then try to make up my own stance and what I'm actually gonna, hold near and dear to and what I can, kind of adjust as new information comes in. So
Yeah, for
so
sure.
far the pro-choice thing I think is the one that I still have the biggest problem with, but that's something that I'm still learning and working on. Abolishing police and prisons, we can both agree on that. There would have to be some sort of change to where if you did do something um, that was way out of line, and instead of going to prison, I think a lot more people should have access to the rehabilitation and not being torn away from their families. I think that's one thing that we have gotten totally wrong as a society is um, the amount of times that people have to spend in prison versus what the actual harm was for the criminal offense. Um, it's broken up a lot of families, and I think we both definitely agree on that part.
Yeah.
Systemic racism, white privilege is real. I think American privilege is real. There are a lot of white people that are in bad situations, and I do think overall the United States as a whole has been pretty harsh on people of color, not only black, but Spanish and Asians, Native Americans, the white privilege. Um,
So something to note about privilege is you can hold on to multiple privileges at a time. And white privilege is an almost global thing. There's very few countries where you wouldn't benefit off of being in that country and being white. But white privilege, as we look at it in America, is just stating that you do not face systemic oppression based on the color of your skin. You may be systemically oppressed for other reasons, such as poverty or like being an immigrant or something like that, but you won't face any oppression in America based solely on the color of your skin. And there's only one group in this country that has that privilege, and that's white Americans.
hmm. Okay. Systemic racism. Uh, yeah, the government and court system has been pretty rigged against people of color, so I agree with that. It's pretty obvious.
Mm-hmm.
What are conservatives conserving? Yeah, and that's one thing. I don't align myself with any government political party. I don't understand why everybody has subscribed to this machine that has pretty much destroyed our country, regardless of who the president has been. It's this left versus right paradigm has gotten us way off track. I mean,
I
we're
think
obviously 30 trillion in debt. There's no conservative. It's the money's just going somewhere else, you know?
Yeah, so I think there's a big issue though, and it's that a lot of the times people in the middle will go, well, I think it's both sides that are causing the issues. But when we look at how America, or at least American politics, hi poop train, when we look at how American politics works, The right side of the aisle is very quick to vote against basic human needs and basic human rights, whereas you don't see that as much on the left. So we can look at the literally the mental health bill that was just passed. Um, when we see that, we saw all Democrats voted for it, and all this bill did, I read the bill, all it did was expand mental health services in school and give more mental health services and more money for mental health services. Every single Democrat voted for it. One Republican voted for it. So I think when we look at the way that the two sides vote, one side is very clearly at least voting in line with the to benefit the country, right? Where another side, they are not. Also, I see you guys on Twitch. I'm just engaged in the conversation. I apologize. So yeah.
Yeah, this Democrat Republican thing, it goes way back. It actually used to be the Democratic Republican Party. Um, I don't understand why we've come down to just two parties. I think what needs to happen for us to make any sort of progress is realize that there are so many different points of view. There are so many different avenues that we could take as a society. And I think what we should really do um, is kind of like a Hunger Games deal, but not so extreme to where people have the ideals and you actually have the state to where you could live there and have all of the things exactly the way that you want them, and all of the people around you who agree can have them that way. I think having a divided country that is united in course or cause towards specific goals would be fantastic, instead of trying to lump, just two diehard left versus right style of government on an entire country, because there's a lot of us that don't even believe in a lot of the things that the Republicans and Democrats are trying to hold on to so desperately.
So
And it's
what I'll say is I believe America should become a true democracy. I think currently the way we're running, where we have like a representative democracy, is not really working. At least to the federal level, we should at least abolish the electoral college. What I want to see is more. I would love to not have a two-party system, but what I really want to see is people recognizing that when you actually look at the way that these parties are voting, and you actually look at the policies that are being passed, one side is only voting in corporate interest, while the other side seems to be voting in people interest. So a way that I'll point to this, and like this will be the main example I'll use, is the right. And now I'm not anti Second Amendment at all. I really don't care if you want a gun or not. But the right tends to blame all gun violence on mental health. So if there's a gun massacre, they immediately go to, well, we need to look at the mental health. We need to fix mental health. But they all just voted against an expansion on mental health, a bill that would put more money and funds into mental health. So it seems like they think it's the problem, but they don't think it's the problem enough to try to fix it, right? I look at this when I look at the way Abbott runs Texas, and he goes, well, I'm going to ban abortions no matter what, whether you're R-worded or not. And people go, well, don't you think that's harmful? And he goes, well, we'll just stop R-word from happening. Poop train. Thank you for the 5 guys, Poop train. You're the best. So he goes, we're banning it for everybody. And when asked, hey, what are we going to do about the people who are SA'd? Shouldn't they have an avenue they can go to? He goes, well, we'll just end SA. But he hasn't put forth any meaningful legislation to like stop rape culture or anything like that. He's just continuing to harm more people. So when I look, like I am very open to both sides. I mean, shit, I'm a registered Republican, for God's sakes, not for any good reason, but when I look at both sides, I want to look at not what people are saying. I don't care what a politician says. I want to see what they are signing and what they're putting their names behind. And when I look at that, there is one clear and present truth. and that is that the Republican Party consistently votes against the best interests of the American people. Whereas I do not see that on the left. I don't see it anywhere. Kayla, what's up, Kayla? Long time no see. So yeah. That's that.
Yeah, and we could go down a deep rabbit hole. America becoming a corporation instead of the republic that it was in like 1918. A lot of the wealthy families bought the United States and established the central banking, Federal Reserve, and everything has turned into, entertainment style government. It's all basically for show. It's it's money. It's all about lining their pockets. And I think the biggest thing that we could do is get money out of politics. They have been enriched for way too long. They have all become way too comfortable. They have, generations of their, the father passes down their, seat to the child, and it's like we've had the same like five or six families in charge of the country for the past, almost 30 years. The Bushes, the Clintons, Obama's related to the Clintons. And it's just like, could we have some new ideas? Could we have some new people come in here? You hate seeing the same movie star in movies. So why don't we actually get some genuine people who aren't trying to just get rich, locked into seats that actually matter in Congress and in the Senate and in positions of power, to where we go in and we actually try to work for the people. We actually try to be real fiscal conservatives, to where, the money can go to the right places and not just, for endless wars, or for, like Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean drinking water. I think Louisiana is having a huge issue with drinking water, and that's something America, nobody in our country should be without, fresh water or a place to sleep at night. There's so many things that we've done wrong and that we have allowed to carry on for so long, that, if we don't stand up and we don't come together as, citizens, and not a Democrat and Republican, that, it's going to get way worse for us in the long run.
Yeah, I mean,
There should be.
I very much agree. In some things, I would say be careful with the whole Obama's related to the Clintons, because they have like a 10th cousin who was born in like the 1700s. So I think just
Yeah, but they were all friends and went to college together, is what I'm trying to say. Like,
yeah,
it's the same clique.
just be wary of the way you phrase things.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've been talking for like almost an hour, man. So I do want to bring in some more people. But I do want to thank
Sounds
you
good,
for like
man.
being open and like willing to change your mind and your opinion on things, because it's very rare that
For sure.
people are like that.
I've just followed you, brother. I'll be tuning in.
For sure, man. Thanks so much for coming by.
Yep. Thanks.